Well, Inyo County District Attorney Thomas Hardy issued a press release regarding the officer-involved shooting, saying the Inyo County Sheriff's deputies' actions were, quote, a lawful use of force, end quote. Now, that press release states that investigators from the Inyo County District Attorney's Office have completed their initial investigation into the officer-involved shooting involving Deputy Sheriff Reuben Bradley, which occurred August 26 near Bishop. Now, the purpose of the independent district attorney investigation is to determine the lawfulness of the deputy's actions in using deadly force. Hardy said, quote, based upon my review of the interviews with all persons present at the time of the shooting, as well as the physical evidence collected, Deputy Bradley's actions were a lawful use of force. The evidence shows that Deputy Bradley responded to an immediate threat of death or great bodily injury to himself and to fellow peace officers, and his actions were justified, end quote. And again, that was Inyo DA Tom Hardy. Now, the press release states a loaded .45 caliber semi-automatic handgun with a round in the chamber was taken from the person of Ray Bencoma III immediately after the shooting. Officers present at the incident described Bencoma as aiming the firearm at them, at which time Deputy Bradley fired at Bencoma. The investigation will remain open pending receipt and review of forensic and toxicological analyses. And those analyses will probably not be complete for several weeks, the press release says, at which time further information will be released. Also, another report of shots fired at approximately 4:30 p.m. Monday afternoon. Inyo County Sheriff's Dispatch received a 911 call regarding shots heard at Youth with a Mission. That's an apartment hotel complex on North Sierra Highway outside of the town of Bishop. Now, that press release states that the Inyo County Sheriff's Office, along with the Bishop Police Department, CHP, and Bishop Tribal Police, responded. Bullet holes were discovered on an exterior door where the gunshots were heard. The suspect, Jason Howard, a 34-year-old man from Bishop and resident of the complex, was detained and subsequently arrested for burglary, shooting at an inhabited dwelling, felon in possession of a firearm, and felon in possession of ammunition. Bail was set at $100,000. Well, Deb Murphy filed this story for Sierra Wave Media. Inyo County's 2016-2017 fiscal budget is a done deal, approved with minor modifications by the Inyo County Board of Supervisors at their meeting on Tuesday. The modifications included relegating $50,000 in a trust account, allocating $55,000 to match funds, grant funds for Bishop Airport improvements, and upping the amounts to cover contingencies from $12,000 to $100,000. After a long presentation and discussion September 6th, it took roughly 5 minutes to make it official. $95,978,087 in expenses against an anticipated $87,935,124 in revenue, with the $8,042,963 difference made up by the fund balances accumulated from the 2015-2016 budget. Inyo County Administrator Kevin Caruncio provided a simple definition of those fund balances. Caruncio said, quote, it's like the amount left in your checking account at the end of the month. You are glad it's there. It shows you have managed your money and it's available to use in the coming month, end quote. Now, fund balances from both the general fund and all fund budgets are primarily accumulated as a result of salary savings associated with vacant staff positions, under expenditures from high-cost items budgeted in one year but not realized, or a series of small savings from revenues higher than initially budgeted. Also, in addition to the official budget approval, the Inyo County Board of Supervisors heard from Michael Reynolds, the Death Valley National Park superintendent. Now, Reynolds updated the county on progress in repairing flood damage at Scotty's Castle and Jubilee Pass in Shoshone last October. The repairs incorporate 43 distinct projects, 4 or 5 happening now, the superintendent said. The balance are in the early planning stages. Now, Scotty's Castle is expected to reopen for tours in January. Visitors will be able to see the recovery as it happens. The park's hot mess hit in mid-August when consecutive power outages forced the evacuation of staff and heat-seeking tourists. Nye County assisted in the evacuations, Reynolds said, since Death Valley's hot mess occurred at the same time Inyo was evacuating Whitney Portal campgrounds due to a fire. And more money news. The 2015-2016 fiscal year for the town of Mammoth Lakes ended with another record-breaking month for the transient occupancy tax collections. Press release from Mammoth Lakes Tourism says June 2016 collections ended up exceeding $1 million for the first time on record. The previous TOT record for June was $772,950. And again, this according to a press release from Mammoth Lakes Tourism. June numbers put the town of Mammoth Lakes more than $4.4 million ahead of budget at more than $15.7 million for the 2015-16 fiscal year. Now, this is a 39% increase from the 2014-2015 year-end actual. The additional $4.4 million plus means there was more than $34 million in additional direct spending at lodging properties in Mammoth Lakes during the fiscal year. Said Mammoth Lakes Tourism Executive Director John Erdy, quote, "The growth Mammoth Lakes saw in fiscal 2015-16 was nothing short of incredible. In any business, to break a record by 3 to 5% is a big deal, so our TOT surpassing the previous record by more than 34% is a testament to our town's ability to reinvent itself and focus on driving business during need periods," end quote. Now, additionally, collections for the TBID, the Tourism Business Improvement District assessment, added up to more than $200,000 for June, putting the total for the fiscal year at more than $5 million, or 29% over budget. You can see that full press release on our website, sierrawave.net. Well, Tuesday morning, members of the Mammoth Lakes Town Council and Recreation Commission officially broke ground on the Trails End Park completion project. Town of Mammoth Lakes press release notes that on August 17th, Mammoth Lakes Town Council members unanimously approved the final funding required to complete Trail Ends Park. Town staff and the Recreation Commission, press release notes, have been working diligently for over 6 years to complete this wonderful community asset located adjacent to the world-renowned Volcom Brothers Skate Park. Now, this $190,000 project includes the installation of red concrete around the playground structure, complemented by 2 new shade structures and picnic tables. A new 24 by 24 foot pavilion will be installed on a concrete slab that includes a concrete walkway, steps, railings, display case, recycling and trash containers, and 4 picnic tables, 1 fully ADA accessible table. That project is scheduled to be completed in late October. Town would like to recognize Mammoth Lakes Recreation for its commitment to complete this Measure Our project for the benefit of the entire community. Press release says this is another example of Measure Our at work and the shared vision to transform Mammoth Lakes into the best alpine recreation community in the country. And while that was a nice beginning, a sad closure for a lot of people, Charles James filed this story for Sierra Wave Media. The owners of the McDonald's franchise in Mammoth Lakes announced the permanent closure of the restaurant, which closed at the end of the day on Labor Day. It has had a troubled earnings history for many years, according to franchise owners Liz and Kevin Mizzou. Now, the couple took over the franchise in 2004. McDonald's restaurant in Mammoth, which opened in 1985, never realized the expectations that McDonald's Corporation had hoped for the resort community. Now, in a statement, the Mizzous wrote, quote, "Being a small business owner in California is challenging, especially in a small town like Mammoth Lakes with extreme seasonality, drought impacts, dependence on tourism, a transient workforce, and higher costs of doing business. We are excited to be able to focus our attention on our 2 viable restaurants located in Bishop and Lone Pine, where we are strongly supported by the local citizenry and enjoy being involved in and giving back to the local community." And again, that was from Liz and Kevin Mizzou. Now, online comments on the closing have been largely sympathetic, noting that the well-liked owners have made many contributions in support of local causes, especially in support of local schools and children. Now, the McDonald's restaurant in Mammoth had approximately 20 employees as it came to the end of the summer season, many of whom received 2 weeks severance pay and will receive references and whatever help the Mizzoos can provide in helping them find employment. 6 employees are relocating to work at the other 2 McDonald's owned by the Mizzoos in Bishop and Lone Pine, and they will receive assistance in relocating. 7 of the employees that were let go were high school students. Now, while the permanent closing of the restaurant may have come as a big surprise to its employees and local residents, followers of McDonald's Corporation News would not have been surprised. McDonald's has been missing its target earnings goals for several years, which have been dragging down its stock value. Now, the property and building in Mammoth Lakes is owned by McDonald's and will be sold. The Mammoth franchise was on the list of potential closures by the corporation, but the Mizzoos decided to keep the store open until at least Labor Day, when the traditional summer tourist season ends. Now, McDonald's success, as with most fast food restaurants in resort areas, heavily dependent on tourism to survive. The seasonal nature of many resorts, which are often located several miles from the main thoroughfares, often result in mean times during the shoulder months between the summer and winter tourist seasons, which have the greatest number of customers. In a case of out of sight, out of mind, a clear problem for the town of Mammoth Lakes when it is not the target destination is that many travelers along the Highway 395 corridor will not drive the 2 miles off highway into town during the shoulder season, choosing to stop to eat in Bishop, Lake Tahoe, or Carson City. We thank Charles James for that report, and we'll be back with more news.